So my name is Daniela Siggia. I'm Vice President of Textile Waste Diversion. And we did the first curbside collection model for a municipality, which was Aurora, which then expanded that to Stouffville.
And you're a private sector collector?
Private sector, for-profit collector, yes.
And you process and export too?
Yes, we do. So our main thing is haulers. So my expertise is in the collection, and then I work with third-party sorters and exporters. You'll have to excuse my throat. I've got the statistics right.
And Claudia, maybe you can introduce yourself and then do the video.
Thanks, Bob. I'm Claudia Marcels. I'm the Senior Manager of Waste Management for the City of Markham.
Any particular large lessons learned during your process? I mean, you did a lot of focus groups. What was any surprises as you went along?
The ban. Too bad I don't have the weekend of the ban. We were drowning in textiles. I don't think the charities could barely keep up in a place. And so far, we've collected, so if you think it's a drop in the ocean, like I think, Bob, you're saying how much is out there? 14 million pounds of textiles since the ban. Army Diabetes is here, but they were servicing the bins twice a day. They were just overflowing. The ban just seemed to, I don't know, people misinterpreted saying it's like illegal now, but they just brought everything they had, and it was in the spring. But we were inundated, and since the ban, our numbers soared. So the ban is a good tool. I think people were using our textile bins very well, but the ban really sort of hit a note with them, especially with the clear bag, because they live in fear their garbage won't be picked up. So all of a sudden they thought just donate. So we were inundated. So the ban is be prepared for a ban because it opens the floodgates.
From a private sector perspective, where is that going to go?
Because the private sector that was operating in Markham prior to their pilot project was actually collecting 20 million pounds every single year. I personally was brokering 4 million pounds a year out of Markham every single year. And I was not the only collector and not the biggest collector. So there were many other organizations. Not all of them are saints. I will attest to that. I won't even say that I'm a saint. But what I will say is that we were doing a lot more that's being collected in Markham now, even with a monopsony that's been created and a textile ban to help them, where it's still a tiny fraction than what the diversified private sector, as jerky as some of them are, were doing. They were doing a more effective job, and we're actually diverting way more textiles from landfill than what's happening now.
So if I could just say, jerky is an interesting word. We would probably use a stronger one. I just don't believe any of those metrics, and that's really been the problem. It was operating out there, and we didn't get 1 ounce of data from anybody. I don't think anybody knew, and I'll tell you a story of why I don't believe your metrics, is that we found a collector who was going to one of the bins, and so we asked him, who are you collecting for? Because we had all kinds of different operators out there. Pink ones, purple ones, red ones, green ones. Didn't know who any of them were. And so we said, so who are you collecting for? He said, well, everyone. And we said, well, what do you mean everyone? He says, are you doing, this charity? Are you doing that charity? He said, no, I collect from them all. So we started wondering, well, how can that possibly be? He says, is one guy collecting? Are they all interconnected? So I just don't think there's good data. I think when you say, well, we were collecting millions before the ban, I don't see that I haven't seen any data that proves that actually happened.
One guy told you he collects for all of them, and that to you is proof that one guy collects all the bins in Markham and everybody else is lying?
So, Daniela,
an EPR program wouldn't necessarily be the death of us. However, I do believe these conversations are putting the cart before the horse. I believe that if we actually had a diversified sector, especially when we're talking about international trade, right now we are dependent on very few foreign markets. They have shrunk extremely over the years. So if we could start developing emerging markets, then competition would do the work for us. So if brands wanted to get involved, great. If they didn't, it wouldn't matter. Because if I had a place to sell this stuff to, or I had a green tech to put towards the stuff that I can't sell, well then we don't need anything else. The sector takes care of itself.
Yeah. I mean, it does pass the problem over to the, for example, with electronics, they took the electronics back, they had to find markets, they had to develop them, they had to figure out where the recycling was going on.
Which we were already doing.
Right.
We were developing in South America, there's Eastern Bloc countries in Europe that we were starting to emerge into. So we were already developing.
The problem I'm thinking that's coming though, is the good stuff and the valuable stuff, but this stuff that's, soil stuff that's, can't be resold or bagged, I think there's a lot, a reasonable percentage in the waste stream that's in that category, which is the
That's the panic.
Yeah.
That's the panic. It's not the good stuff. Give me all the good stuff you want. I can sell that all over the world. But when you're giving me stuff like fast fashion, you know what I mean, that it can't be reworn, that's when we have a problem. So I was investing in green tech long before symposiums like this even happened in this industry. Been in this business a long time. And back in the day that I was looking at green tech, it was undermined. Maybe not, maybe that's a big word. Let's say it wasn't exactly welcome. People were skeptical of it because it's huge, right? It's a big investment, but green tech is where we can find the solution for that, so that we're not inundating, countries with the stuff nobody wants.
I'm going to ask both of you. We'll start with Daniela first. When it comes to collecting residentially, there are different models that can be used. What model do you think works? The existing system? Something you will partner with a municipality?
No, I'll never do that again.
So what was your experience with a municipality that was not good?
City council. It wasn't the waste department. The waste department got it. They were wonderful to deal with. It was then city council. Because the problem with city councils are that a lot of people make decisions not based on economic development, let's say, but because I don't like the way the bins look. You know what I mean? So we get some pretty mundane thinkers sometimes that impact public policy in a way that strangles innovation and growth. And that's what I found. I couldn't scale what we were doing. But what we were doing was great.
So what was it you went?
We did residential curbside collection, which was not really viable. But
In a
it was
particular
great
color
education.
bag? Was it in a bin or a bag?
They had to put it in a bag. And because we were doing it on off days of regular garbage collection, we didn't care what bag. You could kind of tell that it's textiles, and we took care of everything else. They were throwing other stuff in there too, or whatever. And so we would go around the curb and collect just like garbage. It was a lot of stress on the company. It added a lot of costs. Morale with my staff went down. Dealing with municipalities and reports and everything else, doesn't exist. I was doing it independently without municipalities.
Was it once a month or was it?
Yeah, it was once a month. And then we separated. So then it was 4 times a year because once a month wasn't worth it. So then we did 4 times a year. That was a bit better. But again, for me, I found that more of an education piece than it was actually effective at diversion. It was the bins, and always has been, used clothing bins that collect the most. So in my case, we operate from Windsor to Ottawa throughout the whole southern half of the province. I would say at least 92% of all of our collections come from bins, even though we do other fundraising, curbside stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.